Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised. In our society, most people are content to go through their daily lives safely and peacefully. But our society is not always safe or peaceful. For that reason, some men and women answer a higher calling to defend and protect their fellow man. You probably know someone who is one of these people, or maybe you are one of these people. The ones who see and do the things most people would never want to. These things are sometimes heroic and beautiful, but often they are horrific and terrifying. It's these things they don't share about with other people. It's these things they carry with them, so you don't have to. But when they get together, they talk to each other about them. And they call these stories war stories. Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
And we've had a pretty busy week this week. It's been, this is not going to be our Afghanistan episode, just because we wanted to really give that episode some time. And I'm pretty sure, Chuck, that we can safely say that the person we have coming, at least one person coming to join us about what's going on in Afghanistan, has personal experience with Afghanistan.
He has a very intimate relationship with Afghanistan.
He also has a very intimate relationship with this audience.
He does. And he was also the best man in my wedding. And he used to be on the show.
Yep.
And that is about all I'm going to tell you.
So if you can't figure out who we're talking about, we'll have a special guest returning for an episode to talk about what's going on there. But this episode, Chuck has brought us someone that I'm going to say it right now. You have the coolest nickname for your rank of anything you could ever have. You know, you have the light colonel, and you have the first sergeant, and you have the lance corporal, and you have all these different ranks, and they all have different ways you could say it, but nothing is cooler than having people call you Gunny.
So, it is. It's definitely the best rank to be too.
We have
absolutely.
We have Robert Germano here, and he was a Gunnery Sgt in the Marine Corps. And welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Thank you.
And I apologize for calling you sir. I know you're a sergeant and you work for a living.
Yes,
he was a Gunnery Sergeant, not a sergeant.
Well, right. That's even better.
I didn't want to correct him, but
no, we will just call you Gunny. And they're doing their Marine thing right now. They're bonding. They're literally bonding through the screen.
I just had to correct you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, hey, I'm just riffing right here, and I know the correct way of just trying to get through it. So you are joining us to talk about some of your experiences, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up being a gunny.
It's kind of funny because I was in high school, about to graduate, and I had no idea what I was going to do after graduation. And two of my buddies had already signed up, and they're like, "Come go with us." And I was like, I don't want to do this. I didn't really even know what I was getting into. And then just one day, I don't know. I was like, what am I going to do after high school? And I was like, I don't want to go to college. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I just walked in the next day and I said, hey, take me to the recruiter. I want to go. And later that day, we went to the recruiter after school, and he showed me a video of Amtrak's. And I was like, oh my God, that is absolutely what I want to do. It's probably the easiest sign up for him. I was like, where do I sign? And Yeah. So the best part about it is, so I get home, I get back to the house. It's like 7:30. And my mother was just leaving to go to work. She was a nurse, did the night shift. And I'm pulling into the driveway. She's walking out to the driveway, and she's like, where have you been? Why are you getting home so late? And I was like, well, I went to the recruiter today. And she's like, what? She's like, what are you talking about? I said, I went to the recruiter. She goes, what are you talking about? I said, I joined the Marine Corps. And my mom fell down in the middle of the driveway, crying her eyes out, because my parents are peace-loving, tree-hugging, pot-smoking liberal hippies from the 60s who still to this day cannot believe that a son of theirs joined the Marine Corps. So,
well, when your parents are pot smoking hippies, the only way to rebel is to join the Marines. Like my kids are rebelling by not getting tattoos and going to rock concerts.
Yeah. But I had no idea what I was getting into. And, I turned 18, graduated from high school and left for boot camp all in the same 2-week time frame in 1989. And boot camp was an eye opener. So, the funny thing about it was, the funniest part about it was, so my mom, she's crying, why did you join the Marine Corps? Or she goes, Marines go to war. And I was like, oh, no, Mom, I joined the reserves. The recruiters said reservists don't go to war.
Fourth tracks, man. They put a
exactly. Well, that's the thing. So I graduated boot camp and track school and everything. I check into my unit in January of 1990, and 1 year later, I'm in Saudi Arabia getting ready to cross the border in Kuwait. So, and then 3 tours after that. So it turns out reservists do go to war. So,
well, and the first one was so fun. Why not do it 2 more times?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, it was, it's like, you get the bug and it was such a short lived, and it was definitely I felt like, I wanted that wasn't enough. And that's a stupid thing to say. I don't know.
It's not.
Why.
I don't,
but
it's totally true.
Yeah. And I don't know why.
So it's one of the things we've talked about on the show quite a bit. And I wasn't the first person to say this. I've heard a lot of other people say it before me, but one of the things you got to keep in mind about veterans and police officers and firefighters, nobody drafted you. Nobody drafted them. Like the draft hasn't existed since, well, I mean, it does technically, and you got drafted into Vietnam. So, but other than that, it still technically exists today, but it hasn't existed since Vietnam in its actual draft, you're going whether you like it or not status. So every veteran, with the exception of some of the Vietnam vets that you meet, you can understand that they went voluntarily. They signed up for it. They wanted to do it. And then to not understand, sometimes you go over there and the camaraderie, the experiences, the traveling the world, it's exciting. It's adventurous. It's this for the same reason that people would sign onto a ship and sail around the world when it was tall ships and 3 masts and, the RB Dragons is adventure.
Well, I look at it this way, like exactly what you're saying. It's strictly volunteer. And, I always remember people, bring the troops home, we got in the war and this, and that. And I'm like, you don't understand. This is what we live for. You worry about you. And, and actually my last two tours were voluntary. And it's like the NFL, even though I don't like the NFL anymore for their stance on the flag, but
was it stand for no fans left? Right. Is that what?
Yeah.
NFL?
And, but I mean, it's like the Super Bowl. What is the whole goal of a football team? They want to go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. And it's like going to Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever. It's like going to the Super Bowl. And that's what you live for every day.
Yeah. Can you imagine just cleaning a gun you never got to shoot, or tuning a guitar that you never got to play? Or,
yes, I can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's also a sense of fucking purpose. Not only are we gluttons for punishment, we like it. We like the that adrenaline rush that we get, whether it be going to a hot call or active shooter or something like that, or somewhere where someone's hiding on the inside, you need to search it. We thrive on that because this is what we're good at. Not necessarily great at the paperwork and the after actions reports and all that stuff, but when we're operating and we're doing things, that's what we are good at. That's what we thrive for.
Right.
So it's that sense of purpose. And I don't think there's any other breed of human out there that has that. I mean, the first responders, veterans, current military members, they all have that same type A personality, and they want to help people, and they want to go out and do things, and they want that sense of purpose and what they're really good at and to be used for.
Yeah.
And it takes a special breed of person to look in the distance at a building and go, I wonder how many bad guys are in there and how long it would take us to get there and blow them up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you don't understand. If you're not there, you're not there. It's like, it's trying to explain to me what it's like to think that the whole world can be brought together with peace and love and flowers just if you hug each other hard enough. And I'm going, you're full of shit. You're so full of shit. Your eyes are brown.
I can't stand those people. I can't be in the same room with those people.
And hey, those people need a place in the world, I'm sure. And the world needs compassionate, kind-hearted people. And I've said it before. The world needs somebody to hold the dog's hand while it's dying, and the world needs somebody that'll give him the shot. And they're not always the same person.
But you want to know something? So one of the biggest things that I remember from Desert Storm was actually the end. And it might have played some role in why I stayed in as long as I did. But so it's after Desert Storm. We come home and, we're the heroes and everything like that. And it was great, and big crowds, and everybody loved us. And I remember it was Veterans Day right at the end of 91. And it was Veterans Day, and we were doing a big, they were doing a big Veterans Day celebration parade for us. And so I remember the whole unit, we were driving. So we're based out of Jacksonville, Florida. And so the whole unit was driving down in a bus downtown for the parade. And we were getting in downtown, and some guy, so the bus driver had the door open, and there was some guy on the side of the road. And he asked us, he's like, hey man, he goes, can I ride with y'all? He goes, I'm a Vietnam veteran. And he had that look like, and I was like, I could tell the guy was a Vietnam veteran. And I was like, yeah, man, of course, hop on. So he rode down with us. And I remember sitting there looking at this guy, and I'm thinking to myself, here we are, we're getting the hero treatment and stuff like that. And, this guy got nothing, got spit on and everything like that. And I remember, as much as I live, being in Desert Storm was, my first, I was only 19 years old. So it was a huge thing for me, but it was like, it was so short lived. And it's like, here we are getting all this hero treatment. Did we live up to what the Vietnam guys went through? And I think one of the reasons I stayed in was because I wanted to do something to feel like I could live up to, what they did. And,
10 months versus 10 years, the conflict was so different. That actually was what I thought as soon as you told me that he was a Vietnam vet and he has to ride with you guys. You gave him a gift. You gave him the reception that he was due. About a decade too late.
Definitely.
So I think that's awesome.
So and so I ended up staying in, and a lot of the guys got out, and then my company went back. We did the invasion of Iraq in 2003. And, again, that was, of course, that was the most intense thing. We were literally at the tip of the spear, and which, it wasn't even planned. Next thing I know, we're at the tip of the spear with 1-4. And we even did an amphibious crossing. I think it was 5th and 7th Marines were trying to come up the middle of Baghdad to get into Baghdad. It was a big race to get to Baghdad. Was it going to be 5th or 7th, and then or 1st? And I was in 1st Marines, and they couldn't get across a bridge. And apparently General Mattis was getting pissed because they couldn't get across this bridge. And they said, "Well, wait a minute, aren't y'all amphibious? You can just cross the river." And like, well, yeah, if we haven't checked the vehicles, for amphibious ops, but and we were credited, like 1 minute, because usually it takes like 2 hours to check the vehicles and make sure they're ready to go. And like, all right, you got 10 minutes. And I'm like, serious?
Like,
okay, drop the plenums and go.
Yeah. And that's what we did. And we were technically the first Marines in Baghdad. And hadn't done it. And, it was technically considered an amphibious operation, even though it's a small river that we crossed. And I think it was the Diala River.
God damn it, it counts.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be D-Day. That shit counts.
Exactly. So, and it was, and then that we were in. And so it was.
Did you get wet?
No. Well, I did a little bit because the vehicle in front of me, this is another thing I remember. The vehicle in front of me, I saw something fall off. I think it was their rubber mat fell off in the water. And so when I got across, I went to run into the water. I was just going to go knee deep. It was right there, and grab their gear for them. And I take a couple steps into the water, and I look down, and it is the most disgusting, nastiest water you could ever imagine. And I'm standing in it, and I'm like, there's no EPA over here. And I'm just like, I grabbed the thing, and it was just utterly disgusting. And so that's what I remember about crossing the river. So.
Wow. Well, tell us what you're up to now, and then the floor is yours after that. What we'll be happy to hear.
So right now I kind of like had two careers for most of my adult life, because I was in the reserves and I was doing IT at the same time. And so, and then I'd go do a couple tours. I actually did 2003, 2005, and 2006. And after 2006, I got out, technically 2007. So then I did IT for a long time. And then about a couple of years ago, so I'd been doing IT for 20 years. One day I just woke up and I was just like, I don't want to do IT anymore. And so ever since then, I've been trying to make stuff happen on my own with the hardcore designs. That was something we cranked up about 3 years ago, maybe been about 4 years now, I think.
So tell us about hardcore designs.
So yeah, I mean, you look at, it's kind of funny because a buddy of mine, another Marine, I've known him forever. He has a t-shirt company in Jacksonville, and we've done designs. Like when I was in the unit, I'd come up with a design, he'd print it, I'd sell it to the guys, and everybody loved their shirts.
You were the t-shirt guy.
He's technically the t-shirt guy, but I was
right. But I know what you mean, because my department, I was that guy. We did a retirement party, or I designed the t-shirt, had it printed, got everybody theirs. Yep, that was me.
And so one day, like you see Grunt Style, you see some of the other brands, and some are good. Some of them, there were times where I'm like, I'd buy a shirt. I'm like, oh, that's a cool design. And then I'd buy the shirt and it was some cheap, paper thin t-shirt. And I was like, I can't believe it. Just wasted $25. And so I was just talking a few Marines sitting in a bar, and just like where the Marine Corps came about, we're hardcore came about in a bar, and we were talking, and he, my buddy, he's like, I've always wanted to do, brands, our own brand and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I said, over the years, I've always had a lot of t-shirt ideas and stuff like that. So I was like, why don't we do it? And so that's really how it came about. And of course, one of the main things is, trying to give back to the community or to Marines and stuff like that. And last year was our, I don't know how to word it. It was like our biggest, I don't want to say opportunity, but like it was a time for us to really give, back. And that's with the shirt that you're wearing, the memorial when the Amtrak sank. And that just happened to come about. I was in one of the Amtrak groups, and somebody said, hey, I wish we could make some t-shirts or something to help raise money for the families. And I was like, and they're like, does anybody do t-shirts? And I was like,
light bulb.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah. And so we did, and I couldn't believe the outpouring that we got. I mean, and so we started making the t-shirts. And then what I ended up doing was I linked up with another Marine. He was also raising money for the families. And when all was said and done, Hardcore Design, we were able to donate over $11,000 to the families. And that plus what that other Marine had raised, we gave it, I think he raised about $40,000. And so, yeah, we were able to give over $50,000 to the families. Now, one of the weirdest things that I remember about that was, and that was really hard for the Amtrak community, and obviously, the Marine Corps as a whole. It's just like, how do you help somebody with that? And it's like, it's like a humble, you want to be humble about it. It's just really, you kind of just want to sneak up to their door and drop off a pile of money and sneak away. Yeah. And
I'm going to tell you right now to the audience, that's how charity should be done. Anybody that does charity in front of a camera or for a selfie or for the gram is a fuck. Go on.
So one of the things that really got me, so we're doing it. We're selling the shirts. And I mean, the Marines, went above and beyond. They're buying shirts left and right. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden my phone is just dinging every time I got a sale. Ding, like every minute. And I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was going to be that big. And so I'm looking through the orders. And then after a week or two, I start looking at the names, and I'm like, wait a minute, that name looks familiar. and it was one of the Marines that died. And it was like his family, his mother, his brother, or somebody. And now I'm like, oh my God, like now, they're, now I'm making shirts for the actual family members and stuff like that. And so that was also very humbling because I wasn't expecting that. And,
right.
And so, yeah, and that was a chance for us to try to help out. And one of the other things that really got me was I got a bunch of thank you letters from the family members. And I mean,
that's
man,
priceless.
that really gets you.
Every time we've gotten a message from a listener or from somebody who heard an episode that helped them or touched them in some way or helped them to understand a family member, whatever, that means more to me and Chuck than anything else. So I can totally imagine getting what getting those letters would mean to you after you took on a project of that magnitude.
Yeah. And, another thing I remember that was hard, was, so when I'd get an order that it was obvious that it was a family member, I would try to write something, what do you write? But I was trying to write something and I'd have my girlfriend try to help because, it's hard for me to write something, expressive like that. And I was trying to get my girlfriend to help me and she was just too upset. She's like, I can't write something like that. I mean, she was so, upset about it.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was rough on the whole Marine Corps.
Is that the shirt that Chuck's wearing?
Yeah. That is absolutely one of the shirts.
Chuck, tell us about the shirt that you're wearing. Because I know this has a special meaning to you.
Well, it's a November flag. And we carry it on our vehicles. Every fucking track has one. And it has it's got a cool ass design on it. I'm assuming
that's the 1-4. That's 1-4. That's the Marines and sailors in the back.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I know the track community is completely grateful for it. It means something to all of us. It means something to the families. It's something special to us, and it really embodies our units. It's hard to put it into words, but.
I think most people might be wondering what the shirt was for because I know you.
Well, mentioned... hold on, let me turn around.
Yeah,
it's really easy to see what the shirt is for because it has a backside.
Right.
Yeah, it's got the names.
Right. So, explain if you can the incident what you were trying to do because I'm trying to get the audience to understand what the incident was that kind of started this whole thing because we didn't even talk about that.
If I'm not misspoken, Gunny, it was a training exercise that went completely fucking wrong, and the track sank and ended up taking the lives of a whole fucking crew.
This was like 2019, right?
2020. No, this was just last year. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Actually,
all the time seems to run together with.
No, COVID. I know, but I just remember because it's it's like. How much more fucked up can 2020 get?
Yeah.
Here you go. And
hold my beer.
And I think it was. I want to say it was August of last year. So like you said, it's just a basic training exercise. And this is one of the things that's hard to talk about. It's so hard to talk about because there were so many failures on every freaking level. And in the Marine Corps, you see it so much. You're like. And I've dealt with issues like this before in the past, especially my 2006 deployment. Now we never had anything like this, but you see it, and some people just write it off. Some people just like, oh, you're a Marine, tough it up, and this and that, and it was just a training mission that had so many opportunities to stop, and it just kept. Somebody's like, no, go ahead, And so actually a few of the actual track guys, I think, got out, but they got injured pretty seriously from what I understand. I heard the driver was really messed up. But the people in the back couldn't get out. And,
right.
And, and it's weird because I've spent so much time in an Amtrak and, so I'm so comfortable. And you almost, it's like the big thing from 2005, complacency kills.
Yeah.
You don't think about it because you just, I'm so comfortable in an Amtrak that I don't think about how serious it is. That even in a training mission, people get hurt. And what's crazy about the Amtraks is the Amtraks that design has been around
For fucking years. They finally just, I mean, and I love Amtrak's. It's been around for such a long time. They're older machines. They're fucking great machines. They've revamped a lot of the things. When I was in the generators, things like that. They put,
suspension
electronic controls inside of the turrets. They put the Bradley suspension on it, and it was a pretty good machine. But I got to tell you, when we were operating in water, they're like, hey, don't touch the hand throttle. That thing gets stuck and will sink your ass to the bottom. And we're like, oh, great. Why is it in here?
Yeah, right.
It's sitting right there. And one of those, and I don't know the complete incident, but my buddy was lost. I've talked about it on the show. Wesley Rice, and he died in a training accident. And
was that now out in Delmar?
What's that?
It was at Delmar. Yeah, it was at a Delmar. Wasn't he?
Delmar.
Yeah, in the bay.
It was in the jetty. And he had a bunch of school kids on there. They're our school Marines. They were doing their operation in the jetty, splashing in the jetty. And the first thing when I was told when I was at Camp Lejeune, and it's towards the end of the time I was getting ready to get out, and we got the call, and I'm like, I bet you it was that fucking hand throttle. I bet you that the new Marine just shoved it forward and it got stuck and it sunk it to the bottom, because that was one of the biggest things that would sink you unless you were out in the open water and you're taking on big swells and it crushes the plenum and it sucks in all that water. Now you have a big 5 by 5 foot hole in the front of your vehicle that's now taking on water. The only other way for it to go down, now I don't know the exact specifications of what happened in either of those incidents, but my train of thought was going straight to the hand throttle, because they hammered that into us day one in the fleet. Don't touch the fucking hand throttle. Don't touch the hand throttle.
Yeah. Hey, see this big shiny red button that invites you to touch it? Yeah. That will blow us up. Don't touch it.
Well,
Why did you put it there?
Well, I don't think it was a hand throttle. What I think, they started taking on water and it came in a lot faster than they anticipated. And I don't know how. I heard a story where the driver knew that there was a problem. And so what he tried to do is he tried to get to shore as soon as possible. And I heard it was like even at some point like driving underwater before conked out or whatever. But so yeah, it's just there were a lot of things.
I wonder if the hydraulics went out.
I wonder if the water system, the water pumps were working. That's the biggest thing. Is it?
The bilge pumps just go into shit and not working.
Yeah,
so, I could see that.
Yeah, so, nine total deaths. Didn't they end up suspending a general over it? Like he had,
he got fired. A bunch of people got fired.
Yeah,
a bunch of people got fired.
It was basically a domino effect of shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Another thing that's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, another thing that made it real personal was in 2003, my company, we supported 1-4, the logo that's on the shirt. We supported them. So it's like, we feel like, it's a family thing, so absolutely. It was all around. It was just a really hard thing for everybody to deal with.
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, I've personally lost a friend in one of those accidents, and then years later you see like a whole unit or just a whole like track going down and taking the lives of a bunch of innocent souls in a training operation. And then I think back when I was in, and I'm like, fuck, our vehicles have gone down a lot in the water. And when we were doing ship to shore operations, luckily we didn't have anything catastrophic. We would have vehicles go down, we'd hook it up to tow, we would tow it out, either bring it on ship or bring it back to shore, whatever we were doing, however close we were. And, or if we were too far out, we try to push, then hook it up to tow and then get it onto the ship as fast as possible, or get everyone to ass out. And then I look back and, my other buddy's unit, Serafini, he was a crew chief of his vehicle, and their plenums just broke. The front plenum just popped, and they're taking on lots of water. And he was telling me the story, and that shit sunk. They're getting ready they're doing gator squares, getting ready to load up onto the back of an LSD or something like that.
Probably.
And it fucking sank all the way to the bottom off of Camp Lejeune, or was it off? I don't know if it's off Camp Lejeune. May have been off. Anyways, it was in the bottom of the fucking ocean. He said it took them a while to hit the bottom, and then they all kept their composure, were able to pop the hatches, and then you fucking jettison out of that bitch and get up topside. And then we were talking, they knew it was taking a long time to get to the bottom, but because adrenaline's going, they're freaking the fuck out. It felt like seconds to them. And then they popped hatch and got out. Navy divers were starting to get into the water from what he was telling me, because they thought it was now a recovery mission because they had been going down for such a long time in underwater, and people were freaking the fuck out. I mean, and I think back, I'm like, damn.
That shit can happen.
Yeah.
And you, like you said, it's not, it's training, but it's still dangerous.
Well, and that's what people don't realize. I mean, how many people get hurt in training? You know, you don't hear those statistics. And so even just training is really is pretty dangerous.
Pilot F-18 Hornet dies flying Star Wars Canyon in the Mojave Desert for training. You know, how many times you see Marines killed, pilot killed, you know, helicopter crash, training, boat accident, training, plane crash, training. You're training for war. War is dangerous. Therefore, training for war is also dangerous. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Shit, I almost got shot by another Marine doing something stupid. Flagged my ass while I was on the line shooting. And I watched him get Spartan kicked in the chest.
Yeah, that'll do it.
by the instructor. I was like, Jesus Christ. I almost got shot.
So, I mean, you talk about replacing the vehicle. I knew that was coming.
Bittersweet. Bitter fucking sweet.
It is. I mean, because I did 18 years in Amtrak's, and I loved it. It was the greatest thing. Like even before Iraq, we did gun competitions on the Amtrak's, and it was great. And but in 2005, one of the worst things about the Amtrak is it's a flat bottom, so it's very, very susceptible to an IED. And we lost so many tracks in 2000. I got blown up in 2005 in an Amtrak. And I think just my platoon alone, we had probably lost about 6 or 7 Amtraks. And our sister platoons, lost even more. We had catastrophic IEDs blowing up Amtraks in 2005. And at the end of 2005, they just said, fuck it. And they parked every Amtrak. And from that point on, they didn't use them in Iraq anymore. And I saw that as
these things have been around since the 70s.
Yeah,
they wouldn't even deploy them to Afghanistan.
I couldn't imagine.
Nope. You're going to skyline yourself. Not to mention the whole top. If you're going up a mountain or side of a little hill, the whole top of your vehicle is a soft target. I mean, it's thin aluminum. You have eco armor on the side, but that top is just. I mean, it's so soft, and shit can go straight through it and blow it up. And there's
it's designed for amphibious assault. How many people are going to have the high ground on the ocean? None.
Yeah. I mean, the fastest I ever got a track up was 50 miles an hour downhill, hoping we don't
the wind behind you.
Hoping we don't throw track in a Mojave Viper. Fucking around doing some stupid shit. And I mean, it sucked because. Now you get to a unit you're training, we're tracks. Like, okay, cool. But we're never going to get to go to war into them. We're never going to get to deploying in them. And we're lucky if we're going to get to deploy damn near at all. And if we do, it's going to be with MRAPs, 7 tons and shit like that. And then they were taking a select few guys, send them to the Max Pro courses when those came out in I want to say Georgia. And it was kind of like, fuck, we get to do all this cool training and stuff in them, but we never get to actually go out and use them.
Yeah. So actually, so they parked them at the end of 2005. And so we went back. I went back. My Amtrak unit was now a provisional boat unit. They put us in these 40-foot circs. And so we patrolled up and down the Euphrates River in boats, and so that was a change of pace. But it was that was pretty much the end of Amtrak's at the end of 2005.
Yeah, because when I got in 2007, they were we had a bunch of them from Iraq, and we were fixing them, and they were a wreck.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I can imagine. Forever. Yeah, you have to maintain that thing on a weekly, if not, every other day basis.
Yeah,
well, and here's the thing. If you're talking about this vehicle being put out to pasture in 2005, and parked and mothballed, it really does call into question the leadership at the Pentagon when you have that many, Marines and a sailor die in a training accident in a vehicle that shouldn't even be training with.
So I think what's probably saving their ass is that they've been trying to come out with a replacement vehicle with the EFV
for a long time. Yep.
For a long time. And we would have to pull them out in Lejeune out of the New River fucking little inlet. I mean, it's like a little puddle that you'd have to go through. And, you know, grunts would get stuck out there and they're pigs all the time. And these EFVs would get stuck all the time. Bitch, and they looked fucking awesome. I was like, I want to be that thing. They were sick. They'd go in water. They'd hydroplane on water. Be
fly.
Really fast.
They would fly.
Yeah. But they hydraulic nightmare. And I think that's what saved them, because they were going through so many different vehicles. That's probably what saved their ass. And then they finally decided to go to a wheeled vehicle not too long ago. But they should have done something. I mean, I think a little faster, but at the same time, you got to test it, make sure it doesn't work, because then if it doesn't work and you send it out in the field and it takes the life of a bunch of people, then you're fucked either way. So I guess it's a really bad double-edged sword.
Well, I mean, you talk about the AFV, or called the triple AV. I mean, that was prior to Iraq. I mean, like, and you just think of government waste and government whatever, they've literally been trying to replace it since, I remember seeing it in 2002, I think it was. So, and it's taken to, 2020, 21 to get a new vehicle. And it's like, really, is it supposed to take that long? And that's just more government BS and,
Yeah.
Now so I looked it up just real quick. The EFV, well, let me put it this way. The AAV was developed and put into use in 1972. And then the EFV was developed and put into use, it looks like, in the 90s, and then was canceled because the project never came to fruition. So that led to now the ACV, which they started trying to figure that problem out in 2011. So you're right. I mean, if the one that was developed in 1972 still is in service, and the two projects that they have tried to have replace this vehicle, one has been canceled and the other one is still in the works. So what does that tell you?
I mean, it's bittersweet. I wish they would have stuck with something tracked, because that's just the history behind it. Yas, you ain't tracks, you ain't shit. But now what is it going to be? You ain't wheels, you ain't
tires, you ain't tires, you ain't shit.
I guess you can still stick with the same yas, but I mean, it doesn't have the same ring to it.
Well, absolutely not. Because everybody's tires, except I mean, like, there's not that many tracked vehicles out there.
Well, they did away with tanks. I'm like, with the Abrams, and I'm like, I'm hope, obviously I'm nobody special, but like, I'm like, how do you get rid of tanks? I'm hoping that the people up here, are so much smarter than me when it comes to that stuff. But I'm just like, who gets rid of tanks? It's one thing if you want to, bring it down some, but you're right. There's no more tracked vehicles.
It's not, and it's just crazy. I mean, unless they have some serious, like, ballistic tires with super badass run flats, I mean, if you shoot one of the tires out, you're fucked. If you throw track, you can get a new, and you damage a piece of track, you can take it apart real quick, throw in a couple new slabs, put that bitch back together, roll it back on, and then off you go. I mean, it's going to take some time, but it's going to be, unless you have a spare tire rolling around, I mean, you're fucked.
Right. Carrying a couple extra pieces of track is a lot different than carrying more than one of those giant balloon ass freaking off-road tires. And you're only going to carry one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but, I mean, with all of that, so that really, the whole, the track sinking incident, that was, something, like, again, we've been trying to work, one of the smaller stuff that we do, is we get involved with Toys for Tots. We did some stuff with the USO back in, I think it's 2019. So, we're trying to figure out ways to connect with local veterans and stuff like that. So that's, one of the things that I've been working on for a while.
It's harder than being a Marine.
No. I didn't say that. It's just harder than it was. I was like, a t-shirt company, a brand, this is going to be easy. And I was like, this is not as easy as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Right. So, I tell you what, I got to, jump into the fire when we started this podcast, and then all of a sudden, you're dealing with licensing and trademarking and
yes, absolutely.
It's crazy, but it's like what you did with the Amtrak community. It's a worthwhile thing, and that's why you do it. The headache at the end of the day, is worth it. And I've seen the designs. Well, we kind of spent a lot of time just talking about the incident, but I would love to hear any story you want to share with us about your time in the Marine Corps.
It's crazy. Like I said, I've done 4 tours: Desert Storm, 2003, 2005, 2006. I always say my claim to fame is, I invaded 2 countries. Right. And then jokingly, I say a third country if you consider the time I by mistake drove into Syria in 2005. But so yeah, my GPS said I wasn't in Syria, but then I look at the map, and the map said I was in Syria. We were right on the border. I was at this one base in 2005. And and I think about it, of course, obviously I've had, over a decade now to reflect on it. And, as I get older and talk to other Marines, and it's really, I don't know, it's really hard to think about, looking back, like Desert Storm, I was 18, 19 years old. And, I was like, it was great, on one hand, I'm a Lance Corporal and I've got this rack of ribbons, and, and it, you take, you had all this pride and stuff like that. But, and then in 2003, 2003 was probably the most physically difficult thing I've ever done. I put my body through so much abuse. We all did, just driving, from Kuwait and, to Baghdad. And we were nonstop. And, I remember my captain, before we pulled out, he's like, look, you're the platoon sergeant. He goes, you need to know what's going on at all times. You need to be awake. And I'm like, at all times? He's like, yeah. So the first, it took us about 4 or 5 days to actually get into Iraq. And I pretty much stayed up for 4 or 5 days, and maybe a cat nap here, a cat nap there. But after about 3 or 4 days, you start hallucinating and stuff like that. And it was a rough drive. And then, I think about 2005. 2005 was the most mentally challenging thing I've ever done. Because that 2005 for me, that was, in 2003, it was just like we're hauling ass to Baghdad, just shooting. It's like we call it the largest drive-by shooting, because we're just driving and shooting. But 2005, you're embedded in these, towns and stuff like that. And I was in Al-Qaim in 2005, which is right near the border. And, we're doing operations, and, that was some serious stuff. We had one Amtrak right next to me. It was probably maybe 100 yards away. Catastrophic IED. It was a triple stack, and it blew up. And, I think 5 Marines died. And then, my sister platoon, they had a catastrophic IED, and 20 Marines died on that one. And, so I look at 2005, and it's just that was the most mentally challenging thing to have to deal with that. And then 2006 was, so this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the, failure of leadership at different levels. We had such a horrible failure, of leadership at the company level, the commanding officer, and he and I we got into a huge fight one time, and actually many times we fought. And he had never, this was his first time in Iraq, and and I'm like, look, man, I just left here, don't tell me, what's going on, and had a complete, control and command failure, and he ended up getting fired. He ended up getting investigated. Actually, I got fired, but then the Marine Corps came back and gave me what would you call it? Like an apology, but not like a real apology. And
it's like, well, we were wrong, but we're not actually going to say anything about it.
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. We were wrong, but we're not going to tell anybody.
Right.
So, and he ended up getting fired. And there was a huge thing with that. And, and I look at 2006, and it's just we had some similar issues, with the whole Amtrak thing. Obviously we didn't have to their level, but when you have failures like that on the command, at the, different levels of the command, it's difficult to deal with. And like, looking back on all of that, I don't know, the more I think about it, now I have all this time in the world to think about it, and it's just like, it's definitely difficult to look at. One of the greatest things I do love about being in the reserves as opposed to active duty, of course, in active duty, you're at Camp Lejeune, Delmar, wherever, you got guys coming from, all over the country into that one unit. But when you're in the reserves, you're based out of, like, we were based out of Jacksonville, and our battalion was down in Tampa. So most of the Marines that were in the reserves lived in the area, lived in Jacksonville or the surrounding area, and they still live there. So like, I still hang out with, dozens and dozens and dozens of my Marines. I went to Iraq with in 2003, or, even Desert Storm, I still get to hang out with all my Desert Storm buddies. And, we try to do a cookout. We'll try to do a cookout on the 4th of July and the Marine Corps birthday weekend. Sometimes we'll get together and just do a cigar night or something like that. And I think that's one of the, the greatest things is, I still get to hang out with all my Marines and stuff like that.
Yeah. I never thought about how
awesome.
the fact that the reserves are regional would affect how you guys can socialize afterwards. Mm-hmm. Because, if it's national, it's scattered to the four winds and everybody goes across the country. But when you're a regional, unit like that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. Something you said that kind of makes sense to me is, you said the first time you're going through and it's like a drive-by shooting, the longest drive-by shooting in history. And then the second time, mentally taxing and all, but each time is unique. Each time is different. But what they share in common is you don't have time to think about it.
Yeah.
Right? You don't really have time to process it. You just have time to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what you said to me was really indicative of that, which is that in the 10 years since it settled in the 10 years since, it's been tougher to deal with that stuff. And it's never when we're in it. I've go back to earlier episodes and I say, you never know how tightly wound you are until someone starts to unwind you. They don't wind you up at 1 second. It just happens slowly over time.
Yeah.
So,
and the worst part about it is, so like, I see some of my Marines struggling. I have, especially, so in 2003, I can't believe how many babies I had, 18, 19-year-olds. And they seem to be having the worst time. A lot of my guys are having problems with just life in general. I've had a lot of, a handful of Marines, I don't want to say they committed suicide, but like they drank themselves to death. One guy, ate himself to death. And, we've lost a lot of Marines to situations that probably could have been, handled had they reached out. And it's hard, of course, a Marine, it's hard to reach out for help and stuff like that. And so that's some other stuff. Because here's the thing. So when I talk about, like you were saying that it's regional, like, I know these guys, I work with these guys, and it's like, and so here I'm a platoon sergeant in 03, and it's like, I now have 50 kids. I mean, I see these guys as my kids, some of these 18-year-olds, and now they're in their 30s and 40s. And, I still look at them as,
kids.
One of my kids, so, and it's like, how do I help them? Cause I'm not the most affectionate person, and, but, it's like, how do you help somebody? And so that's some of the stuff that we try to deal with.
But everybody has their own way to do it, and everybody can do it in a different way, which, somebody's got your back. However you need it, somebody's got your back.
Yeah.
So, and you're right, drinking and eating yourself to death is just, it's, I don't want to die, but I'm not really interested in living right either.
Yeah. I got to tell you one of my favorite stories, one of my all-time favorite stories from 03. So, I remember when the towers got attacked, and I was at work, and a buddy of mine who I worked with was running late. And so I called him, and I was like, and, this is, we weren't watching the news or anything. So I call him and I'm like, hey, where you at, man? And he's like, you're not going to believe what happened. And he tells me, and then I'm trying to get on the internet to read the news or something. And he starts freaking out. And he's like, oh my God. He goes, you know what this means, right? He goes, and I said, yeah, it means we're going to war. And, that's something that I had been waiting for, that's why I stayed in, and right. I was like, I want to, we're going to, because I knew Desert Storm wasn't over, and I was like, we're going to go back. And so I stayed in. And so we're waiting for the call. We know our unit's getting activated any minute now, and we're waiting, and everybody's. And so finally the call comes, my commanding officer, he goes, hey, you need to call your platoon, tell them to report in 07 Monday morning. So of course, I got a freedom boner, and I'm all hardcore. I'm all hardcore. We're going to war. And so,
looks like we didn't get dressed up for nothing.
Exactly. So I'm calling my guys, and there's this one guy, PFC McGinley, and I'm like, who is that? And he had just graduated track school. He was 18, so brand new that he hadn't even checked in yet, but his name was on the roster. And so I call him up, and his mom answers the phone. And of course, I puff up and I'm like, oh, yes, speak to PFC McGinley. This is Gunnery Sgt. Germano, his platoon sergeant. And she starts freaking out. She's like, oh, he's not here right now. And I was like, well, I said, can I leave a message? I need him to call me back as soon as possible. And she, she starts stuttering, and she's like, is this good news or bad news? And I don't know where I came up with this stupid thing, and it just popped up. And I was like, well, it's good news if you're a Marine. It's bad news if you're a mom. And oh my God.
I love that so much. I'm sure she hated it, but I love that so much.
Man, she started crying, and you got to take care of my boy. He just graduated high school. And of course, now I'm backpedaling, and I'm like, oh my God, I made this guy's mom cry. And I'm like, what an idiot. And, what was supposed to be a 3-minute phone call ended up being like a half hour. And I'm trying to, so of course, when we got home, I like presented him, like, here's PFC McGinley. He's better. He's a Lance Corporal now. And I was like apologizing to the husband. I'm like, I'm sorry I made your wife cry.
But you know what? I think that you probably provided her with more information than she would have gotten otherwise. And she got to speak to the man who was taking her baby boy to war.
Yeah.
And so by putting your foot in your mouth, you ended up opening the door to having a 30-minute conversation with a mom who probably needed it. So
yeah. And now we're best
for a reason.
And, I'm still great friends with McGinley. I still hang out with him all the time. And, so, yeah. And so that's some of the stuff I think about, just there's good days, there's bad days. Yeah. So, there's just a lot of crazy stuff. Like when I think of, I think of some stupid stuff that happened in Iraq. One of the, this was kind of another, it's just weird, for Marines, it's just different. It's like you can make jokes, and it's probably how Marines deal with it is, where most people might freak out. I think Marines are like, we're just going to joke about it, and that's how we get through it.
Yeah.
And so, and I think about everything that happened. And it's like, I think of so many funny, stupid things that happen. You're like, funny things shouldn't happen in Iraq, but they do, along with the horrible things. And it's like, we don't talk about the bad things. We only talk about the funny, stupid things that happen. So,
well, those things need an emotional release. And the bottom line is, if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. So, you just, the gallows humor is a thing. Talk to doctors, talk to nurses, talk to firemen, talk to cops. They will joke about shit that you can't possibly imagine joking about, only because if you don't, it's going to infect you, and it's going to rot away at you, and it's going to eat away at you. So humor is a absolute 100% defense mechanism.
Yeah, definitely.
Keeps you sane. So, well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about your experiences. And, we give our guests a chance. We dedicate each episode to brothers or sisters that have paid the ultimate price. And I'm guessing I know that you do have somebody you'd like to dedicate your episode to.
Yeah, definitely to the Marines of 1-4, the Marine and the sailor that died in the accident, because it's just been within the last, I want to say 2 months maybe, where the reports have come out. And so so that happened a year ago. And so it kind of subsided a little bit, but then it's been brought back up with the final report of the investigation. And of course, now that's spun up a lot of, angst and, some people mad, family members are upset, rightfully so. And so it's like it's, all coming back up. And
yeah.
So
it's reopening the wound.
Absolutely. Yeah. So,
well, I wanted to make sure we recognized each one of them. So it's Navy Hospitalman Christopher Nem, 22 of Stockton, California. Corporal Wesley Rod, 23 of Harris, Texas, and Cesar Villanueva, 21 of Riverside, California. Lance Corporal Marco Barranco, 21 of Montebello, California. Guillermo Perez, 19 of New Braunfels, Texas, and Chase Sweetwood, 19 of Portland, Oregon. Private First Class Brian Baltiera, 19 of Corona, California. Evan Bath, 19 of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, and Jack Ryan Ostrovsky, 21 of Bend, Oregon, died in the mishap.
God, they're all 18 or 19 years old, man. They didn't get a chance to live, and that's hard.
Well, rest easy, brothers. We got it from here. One of the reasons that meant a lot to me is it was one of the first times I think my daughter was really touched by it. She's 20, and last year she was 19, and 2 of her high school friends joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. So they were down there when this stuff happened, and it was like one of those, was it one of my friends? And I think that was the first time she realized, these are people, these are not just people you wave at and thank at a Veterans Day parade once a year,
Yeah.
So I think that's super important. And I appreciate what you did for the families, because again, there's a lot of people that forget that there's huge holes left behind by these people's sacrifice, and somebody sitting there thinking, okay, how can I help? What can I do? You know what? The best thing I can do is just help them not worry about the biggest single thing that you're going to have to worry about when this kind of stuff happens. And that's money. Taking that stressor off of somebody's plate and doing a charity fundraiser to pay for things for them is huge. Absolutely huge. So that's awesome that you guys did that. How can people find your clothing company? It's called Hardcore Designs. And
HardcoreDesigns.com.
CORPS, core.
Absolutely.
The word that Obama couldn't pronounce.
Don't get me started, please.
Oh yeah, me too.
So
yeah,
I definitely appreciate. How do they find hardcore?
You? Yeah,
absolutely. HardcoreDesigns.com.
Okay.
So it's spelled CORPS.
Right. Okay. And that's the website people can order. Is this shirt still available at all, or was this a limited edition?
No, we've retired the shirt. I mean, I have a few sizes, but it's retired.
Basically. Oh, I just didn't know if people were like, I want to go see the shirt. They can.
Oh, the shirt, I think, is still up. Mm-hmm. The shirt is still up on the website, I believe, but it's just been retired. So we're not making anymore.
Right.
So yeah, you can see the shirt.
You see it, but can't order it. So. Okay, well, check out.
Well, I mean, it was like a limited thing.
Exactly. Yeah, limited edition. Yeah. So check out their other designs. Give them a look and order some of your shirts. I like them. I think they're cool. I love the design
I greatly got appreciate
on right now. The grenade with the skull is a cool design.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And Chuck, do you have anything? Why don't you tell everybody where they can follow us, find us on social media, all that kind of stuff?
So if you guys want to come on the show, it's email me at booking.warstories@gmail.com. We're still looking for some female military members to answer a female listener's question and get it straight from an enlisted or really reserve or any female that has served in the military, United States military. We would love to hear from you. I'm sure the listener would love to hear your take on what it's like to be a female in the military. We've also been getting a lot of requests for corrections officers. So if you're a correction officer and you want to come on the show, booking.warstories@gmail.com. You can also DM me and Tom at on our Instagram at War Stories Official, and you can go on our Facebook
website. You can go through the Facebook.
Find us there.
Yeah.
And soon there's going to be a link on our Instagram that you'll be able to, if you only have Instagram. I know a lot of people are switching to have Instagram, don't really go on Facebook or whatever. But we're going to have a link that will have Facebook, both mailbag and booking emails.
Yep.
There'll be the Facebook, there'll be everything, where to ship things to, stuff like that. And yeah, so we want to hear from you. So don't be shy.
And Chuck's redoing the whole store, because I know we've gotten people asking us about the hats and about some of that other stuff. So we're redoing all that, and we got the new t-shirt designs coming up. So you can find us there. I just want to thank you again, Gunny, for coming on the show. We hope you'd be more than happy to come on and some other time and talk to us more about your experiences. Like I said, one of our, my old co-host and a friend of Chuck's is, 101st Airborne, spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, and our next episode will be sitting down, I think, with him and discussing his feelings about what's going on over there. And I'm sure we all have strong feelings about what's
That's
going on.
That's going to be intense. That's going to be intense.
Yeah. So if it's like a 20-year hamburger hill to me. So yeah. I just, it's yeah. Anyway, on that note, the positive note that we always like to end on. And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.